Are you sick and tired of the high costs and inefficiency plaguing our U.S. healthcare system? Do you feel like you're navigating a maze when dealing with insurance companies, only to end up paying a fortune for basic medical services? Then this Broken Healthcare podcast is for you. So get ready to take control of your healthcare. Here's your host, Ray Kober.
And we're live, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Broken Healthcare. My name is Ray Kober. I am your host, and I am thrilled and delighted to have with us today the great, the incomparable Adam Russo. Welcome, Adam.
You know, that's the best intro. I mean, I don't know anyone that would give me an intro that great. Nobody. I mean,
Well,
you need
now
a
you gotta
job? I'd like to hire you just to make me feel good every day.
Now you got to live up to it. All right. So I just want to give the audience a little bit of your background. I'm not going to be long-winded here, but Adam V. Russo, Esquire, ESQ, is the co-founder, chief executive officer of the Phia Group, an experienced provider of healthcare cost containment techniques, offering comprehensive claims recovery, plan document, and consulting services designed to control healthcare costs and protect plan assets. The Phia Group's overall mission is to reduce the cost of healthcare through its recovery strategies, innovative technologies, and legal expertise. And then Adam is the 2019 chairman of the board of directors of the Self-Insurance Institute of America, SIA, and is the recipient of the Free Market Medical Association 2024 Be a Beacon Award, and so much more. Adam, I'm thrilled to have you. And folks, you're in for a treat today because I told Adam, and I'm not blowing smoke, I go to these industry conferences and, typically I see my life just kind of crumbling before my eyes.
When you see your wife, you see the crumbling before your eyes. Don't take that one home.
She does listen occasionally, honey. It was a Freudian slip or a slip of some sort. But anyway, Adam kind of prowls and paces the stage. He's a fiery, lively guy, and he is very unique in our circles. I don't know of anybody else that does exactly what he does and his group does. We're going to get into it because the legal aspect of healthcare is often something that's kind of overlooked, and even large and, dare I say, enterprise organizations don't necessarily do the best job at looking at covering any exposure that might exist in healthcare. And now with the passage of the CAA, I believe in 2021, it's a whole new ballgame out there. So talk to us a little bit. Before we get into all that, Adam, take me back. Like you were a kid growing up in Massachusetts. Are you a Southie? Did you come from the South Side with Mark Wahlberg and all those guys, or were you somewhere else? Were you born with a silver spoon in your mouth? How do you get from where you started to where you are today?
Dude, my spoon was like plastic, like the plastic spoon that you find like in a McDonald's, like under a chair. That was my spoon. Like that's been sitting there for 3 weeks.
Oh, geez.
No, so well, listen. First, I want to say thank you for the opportunity to be on with you. It's an honor. It's a privilege. I'm very happy. And as anyone knows that knows me, anytime someone wants to let me talk about myself, I'm all in. So you got to worry about that. But no, so I'm the firstborn in this country on either side of my family. My mom moved here when she was a teenager from Poland. And my dad moved here as a teen from Sicily. So I'm the firstborn in this country on either side. I don't know if my mom married my dad just to spite her family.
Whereabouts in Sicily? My in-laws are from Torretta, which is outside of Palermo. Do you know the town?
It's Riesi. It's like a little town, like right in the middle, which is a funny story because my dad was very poor. I mean, they had no indoor plumbing. And we're talking about 1970. We're not talking about the 30s here. But the funny thing is, he told me the first time he saw the ocean, like actually went outside and saw ocean, was when he landed in Boston.
Wow.
So the guy lived on an island and never saw the ocean. Like
never
just
saw
to
the
give
sea.
you,
Wow.
Never saw the sea. And but my mom did not want to move to America. She was from it's a city called Gdynia, which is on the Baltic Sea. Literally a block from the coast. But her dad, wanted to move to America, right? It was communism, obviously, in Poland. So her and my dad met in English second language class at Southie High, South Boston High School,
Oh, wow.
that you brought up. So, yeah. And I think that by the time they could actually communicate with each other, they were divorced. Like, that's like, as long as it was physical, I guess it was great. But
Right.
when they actually could actually talk and realize we have nothing in common, I actually don't like you.
Oh, my God.
It was enough time for my sister and I to be born. But I grew up in a Polish, so I'm Russo. But
Mhm.
as I mentioned, so my mom raised me. I was raised in a Polish neighborhood called the Polish Triangle in Dorchester, Mass, which is where the new kids in the block are from. So
Oh,
is New
okay.
Edition. So is
Yeah.
New Edition, Donna Summer. Southie was on the other side of the bridge. So there's a highway that divides Dorchester from South Boston. You go over a bridge, and that's where the evil Southie people were. And it was funny because my school was either you were Irish, like hardcore Irish from the projects, like the Whitey Bulger projects, the McCormick
Right.
projects,
Right.
or you were Polish from the Polish Triangle. We had a Polish club, which we still have. Our company Christmas party is at the Polish club.
Oh, that's awesome.
We rent the whole club. So there's no closing. It's whenever we want to leave.
Love that.
So I grew up speaking Polish. My mom raised my sister and I as a single mom. And, I remember that when I was 6 years old, we actually lived in Poland for a while. And then left right when Solidarity movement was starting. Lech Wałęsa, who was the head of the Solidarity movement, was actually from my mother's hometown. They're from the same place. So I grew up extremely poor.
Mm.
All my friends, I would say were working class.
Yeah.
I was below that. Like if they went on vacation, the way we were able to go on vacation was we'd be able to go with our friends
Yeah.
wherever they were going.
Yeah.
So every week, looking at how much money, we always knew how much money my mother had in her pocketbook. We went food shopping, and we knew we could have spent more than that.
We share that
It
in
was
common, by the way, Adam. So somewhat. So my mom really kind of lost the life lottery twice. She married her childhood sweetheart. He went off to World War II, came back, had some type of a congenital defect with his heart. I don't know exactly what the story is, but he passed away when he was 26.
wow.
Then remarried, was lucky enough to fall in love, married my dad at the oil burner company that they worked at. My dad was an oil burner mechanic. She was like the secretary when secretary was still an okay word to use. And they kind of hooked up. And my brother came, so my mom had one son with her first husband. He's 18 years older than me.
Wow.
Then my brother Jimmy is 10 years older than me. And then she was 42 and she had me. And, at the time she was like, you were a surprise.
You think?
I didn't know what the fuck that meant. I was like, that sounds good. And she was like, yeah, you were a surprise. So, women weren't having kids at 42 back in the 60s when I was born. Anyway, I know what it's like growing up with a single mom who's got, the weight of the world on her shoulders. And my mom used to walk around with, she would have holes in her shoes before she'd let us go without. And that's just the kind of person that she was. So
We have the same mother, man.
yeah.
My mother,
Yeah.
my mom worked 3 jobs. She would work as a nurse's aide at Kearney Hospital, which is in Dorchester, which basically was, people getting shot, stabbed on a night shift, right?
Yeah.
On a weekend. And her job was to clean the sheets. I mean, that's what she was doing.
Wow.
And she'd wake up, she'd come back in the morning at 7. She'd get us ready for school. We would walk to school every day. And while we were in school, she went to her second job where she worked at Dunkin' Donuts basically all day. And then she'd be done she'd finish her shift right before we would finish school, come home, make us do our homework, put food on the table, try to get a couple hours sleep, and then go back at it again. And on the weekend, she'd be cleaning rich people's houses. And that's my first experience of seeing
Wow.
homes where
Yeah.
you had your own set of stairs.
Mm.
Like, wow, those stairs are theirs. Like, they're not just random strangers walking up and down the stairs.
Wow.
But I learned a lot from her. And now I have 4 kids, and now I look back and I'm like, how did she do it? She would show up to every Little League game in her nurse's aide uniform or a Dunkin' Donuts uniform. I don't think I've ever saw my mom at a game without a work uniform on my entire life. So she was awesome. And a big reason of she is the reason why I am who I am today. There's no question about that. For all the good and the bad reasons.
Yeah.
But I always knew I wanted to be a lawyer. And it was directly because of my mom and all the Polish people in our neighborhood. I mean, he was so Polish. You could not speak English
Right.
and get by. No, there was
Right.
no problem at all. But I always saw and felt that she was getting discriminated against or looked down upon, and had a really hard time dealing with the court system, dealing with, child support and dealing with visitation rights and just all the stuff that, for someone who English is a second language. I mean, even today, my mom's still alive.
Mm.
Her accent
Okay.
is just as thick as if she got off the plane yesterday.
Right.
From Poland. So I'm very proud of my heritage. People always say, "So what are you?" I'm like, "I'm Polish." And they go, "But aren't you Sicilian?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm Sicilian too,
Right.
but I don't speak Italian. I don't go by my middle name, by the way, which is Vincenzo."
Right.
To give you an example, like my dad is hardcore
No, I get it.
Sicilian with the chest hair and the whole thing. And I always knew I wanted to be a lawyer just because of what I saw as
Well, wait, did you get the chest hair? Because Polish people are not traditionally super hairy. So where do you fall on that spectrum?
I definitely fall more on the Sicilian side
I got you.
of
Okay.
that. But it was funny, like, so
Right.
I'm a Polish Boy Scout. Don't make fun of it.
Yep.
It was better than America. It was better than Boy Scouts of America, trust me. But every kid is like Pokorski, Striyevsky, Viktorowski, Russo.
Right.
Who's this guy? What is he doing here?
Yeah.
But
And
yeah,
you
we all
spoke
have
the
the
language.
typical
Not only were you Russo, but you spoke Polish.
and read it and can write it.
Wow, that's amazing.
Oh yeah, yeah. So, but I always wanted to be a lawyer from a very young age. I didn't know I was going to be in the health insurance business or in, this world, but it's something I always knew from a very young age. And you mentioned the holes in the shoes. Well, it's funny because growing up, I always had holes in my shoes, and I never forget like taping them up with duct tape. And now I only wear nice, fine Italian leather shoes.
Right.
Like I want a pair of Ferragamos.
Mm.
And it's just because my entire life, that just was I just wanted shoes that didn't have holes in them.
Yeah. It's a luxury that you afford yourself. And when you're kids, like shoes are like a status symbol. Like when I was growing up, it was like Pro-Keds and, Puma Clydes. And if you remember the old, blue Puma Clydes, if you went out in the rain, what happened to your socks? They turned blue.
I had one pair of Z Cavaricis. I don't know if you remember those. There were Z Cavaricis, and I had one pair of Girbauds, the jeans.
Right.
And I wore them every day. Okay. I mean, I wore these every day. I made sure they didn't get dirty. I made sure they didn't get ripped. But I had one pair, and I was gonna use that. I was gonna wear those as long as I could because you're right. I mean,
Right.
style was big, right? Gazelles, right? Shell toe
Right.
Adidas. I mean, where
Hey,
I
with
grew
that
up, it was.
outfit, I'm surprised that you weren't a new kid on the block.
I could have been. I think
Yeah.
I'd be better than most of the new kids.
Look at you.
But we'll see. I could dance. I could definitely dance. No question about it.
If the way you move on stage is any indication, I don't doubt it.
Yeah, I got some good dance moves. I'll be showing them off this Friday night.
Well, the other thing that you said was, your mom made you do homework. So, that's one thing. There are certain cultures, and I think the Polish culture is definitely representative of just a strong work ethic. And for the most part, right? Obviously,
Oh yeah, of course.
there's a spectrum, but for the most part, it's not optional to work. And when you're a student in school, it's like, hey, homework is not optional. You're gonna do this, and that was instilled in you in an early age, and I'm sure it kept you out of trouble.
Oh yeah. I mean, I could tell you that my mom basically never gave us any kind of positive accolades. Like I was expected to get A's. Like when I
Mm.
got an A, it wasn't like, oh, amazing. I didn't get McDonald's that day. I remember I got 100. I got 100. I got 100 plus plus plus. So I got an A plus plus plus.
Right.
Then, I mean, I don't even know if that exists. Like, I mean, who else? I've never even heard of such a grade. She took my report. I'll never forget it. And I was so proud of the report. Well, she was even prouder of it. She sent it to my family in Poland.
What?
Yeah, she just mailed it to Poland to show off that her son got an A plus plus plus. I go, Ma, I want that back. And she's like, oh, it's gone. Like,
It's gone.
It's
Nothing
passed.
we can
It's
do.
passed around the countryside. You know, everyone, all your relatives got it. I'm like, but
That is
yeah,
great.
it was
That's
just
a
the
great
way
story.
it was just expected for my
Yeah.
sister and I, and I'm extremely grateful now. Back then, sure, I wanted to hang out, but I'll also tell you, you know, having the ability to go to like a boys and girls club was a big deal. Like,
Mm.
people don't understand. Like, my life was, we had, where we grew up, there were no parks, really. The only park was you had to walk through the Salty projects and you get your ass kicked every single day or something stolen from you just to get to the baseball field.
Right.
So we would play on the streets. I mean, it was side street. You'd call interference if the ball hit one of the telephone wires. If a car was coming down the street, you'd pause the game so the car could get by. You know, kids would get cut legs, calf
Yeah.
muscles because the mufflers are hanging out of the cars. You'd cut your leg off a muffler. You know, it was
That's so funny. You're sucking me
just a
back.
different world.
I remember all that stuff.
Yeah, it was a different world. You know, you go out on the street in the morning, you come back at night. Your parents would yell off the front porch. And that's really how it was. And my kids today do not have that kind of experience. And many times, you know, I wish they did
Yeah.
in many situations where just go outside and make your own fun. You know, we'd make our own sports leagues. Like,
Right.
every street in Dorchester, my neighborhood, every street had enough kids on it that every street would have their own floor hockey team, your own baseball team,
Hmm.
your own touch football team, tackle
Right.
football, this small strip of grass. So, yeah, it definitely
It was a
something
different
I'm
time. You know, we used to
different
call
time.
we used to call for each other. There was no texting. There were no smartphones, right?
Thank God.
No, you would show up on someone's door and say, "Hey, could Adam come out and play?"
Right.
That was it.
Or how many times you talked to your girlfriend in high school and like her mother would pick up the phone or like her brother would pick up and say, hey, get off the phone. I got to use it. Like, it was just awesome. It was awesome.
Different. You
Getting-
remember the rotary phones? You used to have to wait.
Can you imagine dialing 911 on a rotary phone? Like, the guy's attacking you. You're like,
He's bleeding out. Yeah. It's
well, at
nuts.
least they got the one. They should have made it 111. I mean, that would have been easier, right?
Right.
111.
Right.
Probably could have saved a lot of lives if they just did 111 instead of 911.
True. Or is this stroke a gene or just one? No, that would probably result in a lot of misdials.
Be a lot of crank calls there, buddy.
Yeah, you probably need 3 ones, maybe a star, something, and maybe 911's not bad. It might be a method to that madness. So, all right. So fast forward, so that's kind of the upbringing, the neighborhood, which I long for, those days, just the simplicity of it. All right. You didn't have all of the modern conveniences that we have, and there is something to be said for a lot of the technology that improves and enhances our lives, but in a way, there's a whole generation that is really missing out on the sense of community that was there. At least, and there, I'm sure, are plenty parts of the country, rural America, where that still exists to an extent, but not in the same sense that I think was our experience growing up. It was different world.
I will tell you that I truly believe that back then, you had to be imaginative, right? You had to make up games.
Yeah.
You couldn't afford to buy something, so you made it, right? You try to make something. I mean, I think that's where I get a lot of my innovative ideas from, is that I've always had to improvise. I've always had to imagine and almost MacGyver it. I used to love that show, MacGyver, because like, all right, you got a toothpick and a pencil, and build a nuclear weapon out of it. I mean, it's like you can make anything out of anything, and it really is something that I learned young.
Yeah.
I'm very proud of the fact that my company, Phia, almost all the services we got, we've invented. Like, it didn't exist prior to us having it.
Right.
And when people copy or people try to, whether it's called emulate or copy, I take pride in people wanting to copy what we're doing or try to do what we're doing, because that means we're going the right direction. But oftentimes when you're the first at something, you're going to learn from mistakes. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to make errors. And I don't mind getting bruised up. I know Phia is not perfect, but you know what? We truly do try to come out with services that all fall back into our overall why we exist as a company, which is to make healthcare more affordable for every hardworking American in this country and their family members, not their dependents. I hate that word,
Right.
but also to make sure that there are better, higher quality outcomes that go with it. But, thinking back, I remember like now, my daughter is in sixth. So I have 4 kids. I got a 6th grader, a 5th grader, and twins that are in 3rd grade.
Wow.
And oh yeah, so now, my 6th grade is like talking about high school. There was no college talk. My mom was ever like, "Oh, let's go and visit some colleges." In Poland, college was free. Like, and you took an exam, and if you scored a 5, you were a garbage guy. If you scored a 10, you worked in an office. You scored a 15, you were a lawyer, and if you scored a 20, you're a doctor. And you're all
Right.
paid the same amount of money. Right?
Right.
So when I got a free ride to Suffolk University in Boston, and I'll be honest, I did not want to go there. I got in,
Right.
and I knew I'd get in. I got into a lot of really good schools, top Ivy League schools, top schools,
Right.
but there wasn't the money, and
Right.
that's why I will always love Suffolk University, and I continue to this day.
Well, take me
partner
back
with
for a
them.
minute though, Adam.
Yep.
Before we get to Suffolk, you
Yep.
said you always knew you wanted to be a lawyer. Why?
Yep.
And when do you remember the first
12 years old.
12? What happened?
I was 12 years old, and my mom was having a really hard time to get a straight answer in regards to child support stuff and visitations. All that stuff was very, again, she had to take a day off from work.
Right.
It was just so much to it. And I just remember saying, man, I wish that I could be in a position where I'm smarter than the people my mother's dealing with,
Mm.
and I could override them and go, well, how about this? Or how about
Right.
that? And actually
Right.
defend and protect my mom. And at that age, that's when it started. And then, true story, I got into the show LA Law.
Huh.
And there's a guy in the show who I'm getting goosebumps. Corbin Bernstein. He was an actor, and he was on LA Law.
Yeah,
He was a
remember.
lawyer.
Yeah.
And
He was like
every
a
week,
sandy blonde hair guy.
good-looking guy,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
LA in the
Right.
80s, right? Big
Great
shoulder
smile.
pads, right?
Yep.
And he every week had a different girl. Like the guy dated a different girl every week. I'm like, I want to be that guy, right? I want to be a guy like that. I want
Right.
power. I want respect. I want, girls to like me. I was a 12-year-old little pudgy kid in Dorchester with holes in his shoes. And I'm like, yeah, I want to be Corbin Bernstein of LA Law. But that in combination with my mom, at a very early age, I wrote an essay that I was going to go to law school, become a lawyer. I was going to buy a 3-family house, which is, we all lived in 3-deckers. That's what they call it, 3-deckers.
Right.
For those that don't know, a 3-decker is like a shotgun house, 1 hallway, front porch, back porch, and 1 bathroom. 3 different families live on each, 1 family on each floor.
Yep.
And I was going to have my law firm on the 1st floor, live on the 2nd floor, and rent out the 3rd floor. I was 12, and I actually did that.
Wow.
I actually did it.
So you had a
it was a
dream
very
board.
young age.
This is a dream board, basically, right?
Yeah.
So you had this mapped out in your mind. You had the visual, like this is what I want, and then you manifested it.
And I 100%. And in high school, I tried to do my best to take. I went to a really, really hard high school. I went to Boston Latin School, which is the oldest high school in America. Like it
Wow.
was a feeder school for Harvard. And to get in, you had to be a resident of Boston, and you had to pass the exam. And the exam was extremely hard. And I got in 7th grade. So that was my first exposure outside of the Polish neighborhood, was where I'm surrounded by kids from other neighborhoods, kids with money, other kids that didn't have cash. But, in my life up until that age, all I really knew was Irish people, Polish people, and if you went past Columbia Road, everyone was black. That's literally what I knew of the world
That was your experience.
until I went to high school. and I saw, all different kinds of people and different classes of, economic factors, etc. And it really brought me to a whole new level that I'm like, wow, I can actually compete with these guys. Like, I'm good enough to be here. I'm not just the smartest kid in my little Polish neighborhood with 25 kids in a class. This 500 seventh graders, and I'm one of the best.
You're running with the big dogs.
That changed a lot for me from a confidence standpoint. Yeah, no question about it.
Wow. And so you're like 12 years old at this time, right? 12,
Yep,
13.
13, going into seventh grade. Yep,
And then what did you call it?
Boston Latin.
Boston Latin. And
Yes.
so did that take you through 12th grade?
So yeah, it does. But what happened was after 10th grade, so my mom got remarried, and my stepfather is the greatest guy in the world. He's still around. My mom has had an MS for almost 20 years.
Oh, sorry to hear
This
that.
guy lives for her. The best husband. I'll never be a husband like this guy. I mean, this the most selfless person. Everything's about my mom.
Wow.
Oh, incredible. But I was not easy on him. But when I was in 10th grade, we had the opportunity to move.
Mm.
And we moved to a city called Quincy, which is not a fancy, like high-end city.
Mm-hmm.
But I got to live in my own house.
Mm.
Like, we had our own stairs. We
Right.
had a yard. We had a basketball hoop that was an actual hoop. It wasn't a milk crate attached to a telephone.
Nailed to a telephone pole.
That's how it was.
Yeah.
And when we moved there, it's the next town over. I was able to go to Boston Latin on the subway, even though I shouldn't have, but they figured it out. So my last 2 years of high school, 11th and 12th grade, I got to go to North Quincy High School, home of the Red Raiders, where it was a regular high school, not a high school where it's 3 hours of homework every single night.
Wow.
Boston Latin was harder than law school, man. Like, there's no school I went to that was harder than that school. And then I go to North Quincy, and I'm like, this kid's smoking cigarettes.
Right.
It's athletic and academic excellence, but athletic was definitely first. Like, we won the state championship in football, Division I, our basketball team. We had cheerleaders who were good looking. Like, and I just had a blast. I already took 7 years of calculus. I already took 7 years of multiple languages. By the way, I took Latin and German. Yeah, those helped me a lot in life. In addition to speaking Polish, I was able to go to that school and did really well there, and was able to get like I said, a scholarship to Suffolk, and I lived from home. I lived at home because I didn't have they paid for tuition, but not room and board. So I lived at home in the basement at the age of 18, and I stayed at my mother's basement all through college, and quite frankly, all the way through law school until my last year of law school, where I actually got an apartment for 1 year. So of my 8 years of college or grad school or law school, one of them was not in the basement. The rest of them were in that basement, living with my mom and my stepdad, just trying to make myself a life and a career.
Wow. That's a great story. And so you transitioned from Boston Latin to Quincy, did you say?
Yep, North Quincy High. Yep,
North Quincy High, and you did your last 2 years
it's
of high school there?
Quincy. You say Quincy,
Quincy.
not Quincy. Yeah, it's spelled C with a C, but you say Z. So
That's
Quincy,
like
not Quincy, Illinois. Quincy.
it's like you don't say Worcester, right?
Worcester.
Worcester.
Worcester. So, like,
Worcester.
for example, in the movie Ted,
Yep.
if you've seen that movie, The Little Teddy Bear, his girlfriend, I forget her name, it's like Mary Lee or Mary Sue. If she had two first names as a first name, that's already a bad sign, right? She was from Quincy
Okay.
in the movie, and she definitely was Quincy. Like, that's
Right.
Quincy.
Who was it? Was that
You watch
Mila
that
Kunis?
movie. What?
Who played the actress? Was it Mila Kunis?
No,
No.
she was the girlfriend, I think, of Wahlberg.
Okay.
But the teddy bear's girlfriend was some other girl.
Oh, I got you. All right.
Yeah. Maybe she really was from Quincy. I mean, they might have just grabbed the girl off from North Quincy train station,
Right.
and just put her in the movie. They could have. I mean, it was perfect. But yeah.
So
I
did
went
you
to North
commence
Quincy.
your own when you went to Quincy? You mentioned you were a pudgy kid, but they were very athletic focused. Did you participate in sports?
Oh yeah,
Was that your thing? Would you play?
I played everything. But basketball was my number one sport. I love basketball. I was proud of the fact that I made the North Quincy basketball team because I was a junior coming
Mm,
into a brand new school. And they have kids in the JV program that are in ninth grade that are already working their way up. And I'm the new guy coming from the outside, but I was able to get on the team. I was able to play. We had a great year my senior year. We made it all the way to the state semifinals, Division One. We lost to Brockton High. Brockton is like they're called the Boxers, like the
mm,
home of Rocky Marciano, the home of Marvin Hagler. It
mm.
is a big city, and I knew we were going to lose when I walked in, and we're doing the layup drills, and
Right,
everyone on my team are doing layups. Everyone
right,
on their team are doing alley-oop dunks. Like, and we knew pretty early on
right.
that it wasn't going to be that competitive, but
It was
I
a
had a great
mismatch.
time. I
Yeah,
had a
yeah.
great time.
Cool. And so you're fortunate in that you knew from an early age that you wanted law. That
Yep.
was something that it just kind of, and I always tell people, because I think about kids all the time, and I think it's a little ass backwards that we ask kids to choose a major before they've really had an opportunity to experience life. In your case, you knew. So that's
Hear what
pretty
you just
sweet.
said?
Yeah.
You said before you had an opportunity to experience life.
Yeah.
Dude, I I was I experienced life really early on.
Yeah.
I still remember walking into Stop and Shop when I was like 10, and my mother had $19, 19 bucks.
Yep.
And if we're, this is before scanners, and if the bill came out to 21, my mom, instead of being embarrassed,
Right.
she would take something off and go, "I told you to put that back," even though she never did.
Right.
And
Right.
just to make sure that we just got under $19. That's all we had.
Right.
It's
Yeah.
I grew up really early.
Yeah. Yeah.
Some parts of me wish I didn't. Like parts of me, like I wish I got the experience to go on a school bus. Walk to the end of the street and the bus comes. Like I never experienced that. A lot of those things.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, but
it's
life happened early for you.
and that's why I knew that's what I wanted to be. It never changed. If
Yeah.
anything, I think my love for the law and for what it could do, both good and bad, the power of it, really just flourished even more in college.
So you get to Suffolk, and as you said, you weren't thrilled, that wasn't your first choice, but it was your only choice, right? It
Yep,
was, "Hey,
basically, yeah.
this is the ticket."
All my best friends, not one went to college. Like, just to give you, like the kids I grew up with in Dorchester, we call ourselves the APP, All Polish Posse. We still hang. Like, I
Wow,
just spent Thanksgiving weekend with 30 of us. Those are my boys from when I was 2, my best friend,
that's
and
great.
now their kids and my kids are all friends.
Right,
But yeah, like, I mean, they all got jobs. So they're
right,
all making like, 500 a week, like
right,
big money.
right.
And I'm living at home, going to Suffolk, working part-time, like making like, $30 a week on my check, try to make ends meet.
Right. But look at you now.
Yeah.
Look at you now. So what was your experience like in law school, and what was your first kind of, did you kind of dial in on a specific area of the law, or was it general law?
So I'm going to take a sort of step back, but not really. So the origins of Phia started day one, English 101, Tuesday morning, 8 o'clock, English 101 with Professor Loomis, Loomis. We used to call her Looney Loomis, okay? And the kid behind me, this kid by the name of Mike Bronco, I'm going to give Mike a shout out. I just looked at him when I sat down, and he like, gave me like a "what's up" thing, right? First day of school, and
Name
I'm like,
like
"Oh, what's
Mike
up?"
Bronco, he should be a stunt double somewhere.
Mike Bronco's a Portuguese, so
That's a
imagine
cool ass name.
it's a great name, right? So imagine the Polish kids in Dorchester. Mike Bronco had the same exact upbringing, but in a town called Stoughton, which is right 2 miles from here, where everyone's Portuguese. And he had the Portuguese posse, literally. Like all his buddies are Portuguese, and not even Portuguese. Everyone in Stoughton pretty much is not from the mainland of Stoughton. They're from the islands. They're from the Azores. So it's Portuguese, but from the Azores. And he
Hmm.
was from an island called Fayal. Remember the name, Fayal.
Hmm.
So first day of school, I go, "Where you from?" He goes, "Stoughton." I go, "Oh, do you know this kid Nelson?" By the way, every Portuguese person, their son is named Nelson. That's like being called Mike. Okay.
Wow.
And he goes, "Oh yeah, I know that kid. I hate that kid. He like just." And this kid was living at my house with me the summer prior.
Right.
So, needless to say, Mike Bronco and I became best friends first day of college.
Wow.
And I had a girlfriend in college. Now, funny story with the girlfriend. Mike hated her.
Oh boy.
She hated him. He hated her. I mean,
Mm.
mutual hate. So it was a Friday night. I'm 18 years old. I made plans with Mike, but I also made plans with her. Now,
Oh
remember,
boy.
I'm 18.
Right.
I gotta.
You double booked.
She was a she was a beautiful girl. She was loaded. She had an apartment that her parents paid for on Com Ave,
Mm.
huge windows. Literally, her view was the Prudential building, like Back Bay. Like,
Right.
I'm living in my mother's basement. She's, and I'll never
Sounds like at
forget.
least 10 grand a month in today's dollars.
Oh, minimum. And I'll never forget when I went to her house. She lived in a town called Wayland, which is a very rich town. And I mean this with all sincerity. It was the first time, I swear, it was Christmas. It was the first time I ever sat at a dining room table, an actual dining room. We didn't have a dining room. We had a kitchen and then a hallway, and then every room was taken, right, with
Yeah.
people. They had a dining room, and the father and the mother and all the kids are all there. And they're all eating together. And I still, to this day, that's 32 years ago, man,
Wow.
as if it was yesterday. I'm like, I've never experienced that. I've never seen parents together, like not divorced. How can both parents be home?
Right.
Who's working? Who's working?
Right.
Everyone's at this table. Look at this fancy, these plates. Like, why are there three forks on my table? No idea.
Wow.
And that had a huge imprint on my life. But so she hated him. Excuse me. So we had plans, and I call him up. I put him on. Remember, I have my girlfriend next to me. I have him on speaker, right?
Mhm.
And he goes, "We made plans."
Oh no.
Eh.
And my girlfriend goes, "Phia, Phia, Phia, Phia,"
Uh-huh.
making fun of his voice. So all of a sudden, we had the word "Phia." If, let's say, you were at a bar and I'm with my buddies and a girl was annoying you, well, we could obviously talk Polish to each other, which was one thing.
Right.
But we also would go, "Phia, Phia," like get away, like, "Ah, Phia, Phia," like Phia, Phia was like a getaway kind of thing, you know?
Yep.
So we had a basketball team in college, Team Phia. We had a stock investment club, Phia Investments. Like everything was Phia.
Oh, wow.
F-I-A.
Right.
Well, obviously I break up with the girlfriend, right? Do my thing. And the whole time when I was at college, I wanted to be a lawyer. So I got a job working for a local law firm. Like I could walk to the law office from class.
Mm.
And I started working there my freshman year in college. And the guy, his name was Buddy, the scariest guy I've met in my life, dude. Like probably, maybe scarier than my father-in-law, but 1 and 2. Okay.
Scary
Either way.
how? Physically intimidating, both?
Harvard educated Marine
Oh boy.
who was a lawyer.
Oh boy.
That's all you got to know. Marine Corps, Harvard. Like,
Right.
so he's got brains. He's badass. And the guy was just badass. And I worked there answering phones. And his company did subrogation recovery for third-party administrators,
Yep.
TPAs.
Yep.
What's the chances? And I worked there all through college, worked there all through law school, worked there when I got my master's degree as well in finance. And I learned the industry working for Buddy and the 10 people that were in the office at that time.
Let me pause you there for
Sure.
a second. I don't want to break your roll because you're definitely on a roll, but just out of curiosity,
Yeah.
so you're there's a lot of what's the word, mystique around a Harvard quote unquote education.
Oh, yeah, of course.
And so the difference between a Harvard law grad and a Suffolk law grad, is it smoke and mirrors? Is it fluff? Are you truly getting, you know, a much better education necessarily at Harvard because the pedigree is that much better? Just out of curiosity, I'd love for you to talk about that for a sec.
So, getting out of college, I knew I wanted to go to law school, right? So I applied to the best. So I wanted to go to Case Western Reserve, which is in Cleveland. It's like the Harvard of the Midwest. I got in,
Okay.
and top 10 law school. I got in, no financial aid.
Mm.
So I knew that I could not go there. I mean, my dream was to move to Cleveland. How many people say that? Their dream is to move to Cleveland.
That
My
explain why
dream,
you're a Cleveland Indians fan? Because I saw that in your bio. I was like, what?
I'm a big, there you go, bro. I'm a
Where does
big
that come
Cleveland
from?
fan. Long story, I'll tell you that. I mean, dude, we could do 5 hours, man. I've
Right.
been writing a book
Yeah.
for the last 30 years called How to Get Laid Living in Your Mother's Basement.
Okay. That I
True
would read
story.
that.
It's a how-to book, but it's a great inspiration book. It's, everything I've learned in my life. But I'll get to that Cleveland point
Yeah,
in a
yeah.
second. And I was going to work at Jacobs Field as a concession guy, so I
Okay.
could go to all the games and, and go to Case Western. But my guidance counselor said, "Hey, Adam, why don't you apply to Suffolk?" And I go, "Dude, I don't want to go to Suffolk again. Like, I
Right.
just did Suffolk." He says, "Just have it as a safety. You never know." And Suffolk gave me a full ride again
Mm.
to law school. I mean,
Yeah.
now I have a scholarship every year for a one kid from Dorchester to scholarship to go to Suffolk.
Wow.
I put that in place last year because if I didn't have that given to me,
Right.
we wouldn't be sitting here right now.
Amazing.
I don't know where I'd be, but
Yeah.
so I can tell you that got into that school, and schools like Harvard and Case Western, there are certain law firms that will not hire you
Right.
if you don't come from a prestigious school.
Yep.
Me personally,
I
what
saw
I've
Suits.
learned after 25 years of running a company, I can
Yeah.
tell you that I look at a kid from Suffolk and I look at a kid from Harvard, and I want people that want to work. I want
Mm.
people that have a chip on their shoulder. I
Yeah.
want people that want to break the norms. I want people that just for whatever reason feel like they want to get ahead of
Mm.
whatever they're experienced, whatever their background is. Those folks are the ones that I find are the hardest workers, even the smartest people, because there's brains, right? There's street smarts and then there's
Right.
school smarts. And
Yeah.
I definitely was able to get a lot of street smarts over the years. And what I found was we all take the same bar exam. And there's Harvard grads who fail the bar exam. And if you pass the bar exam, you're qualified to be a lawyer. I don't care what law school you went to.
Right.
And it just gave me a lot of just that ambition to prove people wrong
Yeah.
was such a motivator for me. And
So
I tell
it's
kids all the
funny that you
time.
say that. Again, I'm sorry to interrupt, but
No, it's
so
fine.
my father-in-law is from Toretta, Sicily, came here, off the boat. He actually landed in Boston first.
Oh, wow.
I forget what happened and what the story was, but he got deported and had to actually make his way back a second. I'm not sure if he got to Boston the first time or the second time. Anyway, one of the hardest working guys I know, worked, construction for Empire City Subway, which then was Verizon. This guy was out there in like sub-zero weather with a jackhammer. Just the epitome of everything that you would want and expect in a dad. The guy is just amazing. He's an amazing dude.
It's
And
awesome.
my sister-in-law, my wife's sister, went to law school, and she was going to take the bar. And my father-in-law's, comment was, how could she pass the bar? What's his name? John Kennedy Jr. He was like,
Failed.
he failed multiple times. He's like, there's no way she can't do it. It's impossible. Long
Right.
story short, she passed the bar. She graduated top of her class. She worked in the Queen's ADA's office and went on to a very successful career. But you're right. So is the takeaway that the law degree is kind of table stakes? It's kind of the price of admission, if you will.
Yep.
And obviously, there's prestige associated with some universities out there that just it's their heritage, et cetera, et cetera. But I like what you say about for any of the kids that are listening. It does matter. Like when you show up at an interview, you're really the interviewer is trying to figure out who you are.
Right.
And it's the degree and the university and the schools that you went to. Yes, it does count for something, to be sure. But at the end of the day, is this going to be someone that's going to make a contribution? Are they going to help us get from here to here? I think that is so underestimated, and I think
100%,
I
man.
think so many people just put all the value in the degree or the school, and that really is table stakes. That's
I
just
mean,
the price of admission.
I'll be honest with you. Like, if let's just say, you have one kid who, let's say, like my kids, right? They're gonna have college paid for. It's already
Yeah,
paid for.
yeah,
It's one thing to go from high school, you go to college, you live there, you don't have to work, right? You're lucky enough, and there's that kid. And then you got another kid who, he's got 3 jobs, right? He's working at McDonald's, he's working at Subway, he's going to night classes at some community college. Then he gets his associate degree. Then he's going to school at, part-time to get his undergrad degree. Then he gets a job and goes to law school at night. Which kid am I hiring? I'm hiring the law school kid that went at night.
yeah.
Why? Look at what this kid had to deal with and go. That's how hard, that's how bad he wanted it.
It's a battle. Yeah,
He was willing to go through all those things. Now, my kid, I don't know if they'd be willing to go through all those things, right? I don't
yeah,
know. But
yeah.
and what I tell people all the time is on interviews, sell me. I think a lot of times what happens with kids with prestigious resumes, they let the resume speak for itself. They're like, why do I got to prove myself? You see my degrees, you see my GPA, I've already proved myself.
Mm,
Whereas a kid that walks in and goes, this is why you got to hire me. I have never, and you can tell, hope you listeners are listening, I've never not hired someone who literally looked me in the eye and said, I will not let you down, sir. I've given
mm.
them a job. I've given them a job.
Wow.
It's just the way it is. A lot of times I don't even know what job to give them. I just know I want that kid. I want that attitude. I want that vigor. I want that
Right.
emotion. I want that passion in this place.
That's beautiful.
And that's
Yeah.
what I do. So we have a lot of people here who I think, I say this about myself. I have a lot of people here who, if they would not be in the shoes, the positions they're in, if they were at any other company,
Right.
like they got an opportunity. I saw something, they believed in themselves, and we created magic together, man. That's it.
This episode of Broken Healthcare Podcast is brought to you by Benefixa Healthcare Consultants. Visit benefixa.com to learn what's possible. Reduce the cost of healthcare for your organization, deliver better outcomes for your people, and yes, design health plans that give your people a path to $0 out-of-pocket costs for healthcare. Visit benefixa.com today. So take me back to your scary Marine, Harvard stepdad, who, by the way, you already said is a gem of a man. Like he was.
So my stepfather is, so 2 different guys. My stepdad
Oh, okay.
is from Poland. He's still with my mom. My boss buddy was the Marine Corps attorney guy. Okay.
Got it.
So my boss, brilliant man, built a company, right? And then what happened was when I was in law school,
Just intimidating as fuck.
intimidating as fuck, dude. I mean, you show up 5 minutes late, you're like, is this guy gonna waterboard me? I mean,
Right.
literally, that's how scared you were. But I learned so much there. And then what happened was he finally decided, I need a sales guy. There was no salesperson at his company, like none. And I volunteered while I was in law school, going to school full-time days. And I became a sales guy. And this is like, early internet, right? I'm trying to find companies. I didn't know what Saya was, as an example, right? I'm learning about it. And the first sale that I made, the fact that I was Polish and knew Polish had a huge part of it, which I never thought that would help me in my entire life. When my mother sending me to Polish school on Saturdays, I'm like, what the hell is this going to do for me? Well, she was right. The company is called Meritain today, the biggest TPA in the country.
Yep.
Back then, it was called North American Health Plans. Same location in Amherst, New York. And the guy that was making the decision to outsource subrogation to a company was Polish.
Huh.
And I had my mother make Polish kielbasa, fresh kielbasa, and I just mailed it to the guy.
What? Not pierogies. I like
Not
pierogies.
pierogies. It
I
did.
like
Oh, I
me
love
some
pierogies, but
pierogies.
you get some. Listen, no Hillshire Farm bullshit. Real homemade
The
Polish
real
kielbasa.
stuff. Yep.
And the guy took an interest, and I think he saw that, and he's like, "I'm going to take a shot with this kid." Well, my boss decided not to pay me my commission,
Mm,
and I didn't have a non-compete because, again, remember, Buddy's this larger-than-life figure. Who's leaving him?
right.
Who's going to screw him over?
Right.
And I made the decision right then and there because I'm starting to get phone calls from companies all around the country asking me to work for them. Like
Huh.
recruiters are calling me on my 20, I think it was my 20th birthday. I'm getting picked up in a limousine in Nashville, Tennessee. And I'm like, what the hell's going on? So I realized at the age of 25, I'm like, I'm living at home.
Right.
I'm making really good money working for Buddy. I'm being offered these huge jobs. And I go, you know what? I think I could do this myself. And I knew all the competitors. So, give you an example. I got my master's degree in finance from Suffolk too. So I'm a tri-ram. I
Hmm.
think there's less than 100 of us with 3 separate degrees from Suffolk. And I got my master's degree in finance just for one reason. There was a company in our industry that did subrogation that was a publicly traded company on the New York Stock Exchange. I couldn't read an annual report. I couldn't read a quarterly report.
Mm-hmm.
So I got my master's degree just so I could study that company. I
Huh.
swear to God.
Wow.
So I understood what all the analysis meant, what the numbers meant. And I was in grad school while I was in law school with a bunch of people who worked at Fidelity who were all trying to move up, right?
Mm.
And I'm doing it so I can learn information about my competitors.
Wow.
And what I found was that there were things that nobody else was doing that I was like, thought was so obvious. So I was 25, not even 26 yet. And my best friend Bronco happened to get laid off.
Mm.
And Bronco was an awesome sales guy, still is. Okay.
Yep.
And I go, hey, dude, I'm going to start a subrogation company. You want to join me as a 50-50 partner? This kid has no idea. I might as well say segregation versus subrogation. Funny story. My mother, never
Right.
forget it, while she was working as a nurse's aide on a Friday night shift, she worked in the inner city. So she worked with a lot of brown people, black people, Haitian people. And she, in her Polish accent, said, she was so proud, my son is the best segregation lawyer in the country.
and then the phone started ringing.
And then all her coworkers are like, what did you say? But anyways,
Well,
and he said
well,
yes.
We'll pause there for a second and explain
Sure.
to our audience what is subrogation.
It's subrogation is stepping in the shoes of another party and then taking on their rights. So recovery rights. So if I'm, knock on wood, if I'm in a car accident today and I get really hurt, my health insurance company is paying the medical bills. But if there was another person that was responsible for the accident that rear-ended me, they should be paying the medical bills.
Mm-hmm.
So subrogation, what we do here, what the beginnings of Phia was identifying claims where we feel maybe another party was responsible, sending a letter to that person, finding out what happened, how they got hurt, and if there was another party responsible, getting that money from the responsible party, we'd keep 25% of it, send the 75% back to our client. So it's reducing the overall cost of health insurance. That's what we do. That's what we did.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we still do today. And that's how it all started. So I asked Mike, and the only reason I asked Mike is I knew that he was getting paid unemployment.
Well, wait,
So
how
he'd work for
does
free.
it reduce the cost of health insurance? You lost me
Because
there.
every dollar that is recovered,
Yeah.
that's sent back to the health plan, can be reused again for future claims. So if the
So your client was the health insurer?
Yes, we represent self-funded plans.
Got it.
65% of employers nationally, are self-funded.
Yep.
Meaning they hire a carrier, a Blue Cross or whatever, right, to administer the
Yeah.
claim. But it's their money that's paying for the claims.
Mm-hmm.
So if I'm able to recover money back to the plan, they can reuse those funds for future claims.
Yeah.
It's just it reduces the overall spend for that particular plan. But what I realized was nobody was offering to review the plan document. The plan document is the SPD, right? Everyone gets a plan doc. What's covered, what's not, what's denied, what's excluded, etc. Every plan doc has a recovery provision, a subrogation provision, stating what the rights are of the plan to get the money back.
Yep.
And they were all poorly written.
Mm.
And what I realized in law school is that the law, the federal law, because this is all under ERISA.
Yep.
ERISA is what governs all this.
Yep.
Under the law, it says whatever the contract says your rights are is what your rights are. The contract is the plan doc. So I had this amazing idea. We're going to review everyone's plan doc for free.
Mm-hmm.
Why? Because if I can make your rights stronger, I'm going to recover more money.
Right.
And if I recover more money, more people are going to choose my company over the competition.
Mm.
That's how it all started.
That was the idea. That was the big idea.
That was the idea. That was the big idea. And also sharing reports with clients every month of exactly what we've identified, how much money is out there, etc. Really detailed analytical reporting, which did not exist at that particular time of the year, 1999, as an example.
Mm.
So that was my big idea. And I had no leads. I didn't steal any clients from Buddy or the company. And I asked Mike, because Mike, again, was on unemployment.
Well, let me stop you there again, though. For Buddy,
he was not happy.
Well,
Buddy was not happy.
Well, Buddy, you know, listen.
I think Buddy
allegedly screwed you over.
But not really.
So I'll say allegedly, but he did. I mean, paid that man his money.
But I wouldn't. Right? But I'd never be here today.
You wouldn't be here today. But that's the interesting thing. If he did the right thing, you probably wouldn't have did what you did.
No way. I would have stayed there. Why wouldn't I have stayed? I would be making over $100,000 a year. I'm 25 years old. My office was downtown Boston, overlooking the Boston Garden. I can see the Boston Garden from my office.
Yep.
There's a bar downstairs from my office. The floor level was a popular bar. I'm 25 and single, man.
You got money. You got a career that's on fire. And you know, just like I can't get in Buddy's head. I don't know Buddy from a hole in the wall, but Buddy's thought process is probably he's a fucking kid. Look at all the money he's making. Like he doesn't need this. Like that's all right. We don't need to pay him.
100%. And I think, but I think today, you know, I have not talked to Buddy in 26 years.
Wow.
I could tell you that sometimes it actually hits me sometimes, and I'm like, you know what? I want to call him.
Right.
I'm gonna start crying.
Well, you should call him. Life is too fucking short, Adam. It is.
Take him.
It is. No? And he might be like, fuck you.
Nah, maybe not. But maybe not, right?
Maybe not. No, you know, time does heal all wounds. And look, I mean, you have fond memories of him, but at the end of the day, while
I learned so much from that guy. Oh yeah.
Well, so it lit a fire under you.
Yep.
But at the end of the day, it is what it is. Like, you know, he's a big boy. He made the decision that he made. And you know, it stoked the flame in you that created a fire. And look at you now.
So it's funny. So I asked Bronco, I got this idea, and we agreed to start it on February 7th of the year 2000. And the only thing we didn't know is what are we going to call the company? Well, don't forget Phia, right? So we had a basketball team, and everyone called us Team Phia because it's spelled F-I-A.
Right.
So obviously people say Phia. So I said, how about the Phia Group? F-I-A.
Right.
And then we realized the letters FIA are used by so many insurance companies, by Federated Insurance or whatever.
Right.
My sister, who works for my company now, just started last year, actually. She lives in Amsterdam now, but I'll get into that. My sister said, well, how about the letter PH? And she goes, the Greek letter phi is basically a line with an oval going in the middle.
Right.
It's the Greek letter phi.
Yeah.
It means what? Philosophy. The search for the truth. We're going to find your true claims. What really you should be paying for. So she took that Greek letter phi and just angled the P to make it the Phia P that is today.
Very cool. Love that.
She didn't get paid for the logo. Oh, trust me, now she has, dude. I paid more for that logo than Nike did, okay, for the swoosh.
You take care
But
of your own. That's good.
I take care of her. But interesting thing is, it it worked. But the first prototype that my sister showed me, she went to UMass Amherst. I'm going to leave
Mhm.
it there. Party school, lots of different kinds of partying going on. The first one she showed me, I actually have it in my office right now. She made a Native American dream catcher pea.
Mm.
That was the first prototype, not on a piece of paper. She made a dream catcher of the Phia logo and goes, "This is your logo." I'm like, "Great. Can you write it down on paper, maybe, so I can actually color it in?" And that's how the company was started. The Phia Group
Wow.
was that logo. And I live in my mother's basement.
Yep.
Mike's my friends, were cab drivers, worked pizza delivery. They would give us free pizza. I would drive cabs on the weekend with my best friend Al. Still, he's still my best friend today. Spent Thanksgiving with him. Mike's friends all worked. Like one guy was at a storage place. So you see the TV show Storage Wars. People that didn't pay, he would just give us their old furniture. So
Right.
everything we had, laptop, computers, desks, everything was
Right.
donated to us.
Wow.
We couldn't get a loan. I had $4,000. Mike had $4,000. Phia was started, and this is true, and never got another investment and never got a loan ever
Wow.
with $8,000.
Wow.
And
That's
we have
incredible.
300 employees today.
That is amazing.
And we started it, and it was in my mother's basement
Yep.
in February. And by June, we got an office above a restaurant. Small, it had I drive by the office once a week on purpose. On purpose.
Right.
On
As a
purpose.
reminder.
Remind me.
Yeah.
We had one little office, and there was 8 offices. We eventually took over all 8 offices.
Wow.
And I worked as a waiter downstairs. So I get out of work at 4, walk downstairs, be a waiter from 4:30 to like 11. And then the cooks and the workers, we'd all go upstairs and party, right? I'd sleep at the office.
Right.
I mean, it was fun, right? And I'll never forget, that was the year 2000. I got to quit my job as a waiter 2 years later.
Right.
And in the year 2004, our company's revenue was $1 million. We made $1 million in revenue
Yeah.
4 years after it. Not me, the
Right.
company's revenue.
That's amazing.
We're still losing money probably, but
Right.
we did $1 million. And
Well, folks have to realize, like the time frame you're talking about, people were just starting to get email in 2000, right? It was barely a thing. It was the
this is
turnover
mailing
of
stuff.
.com.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
but you were still, like you mentioned, your buddy Bronco, who's your partner, being a good salesman. He wasn't having Zoom meetings, right? He
Oh.
was I'm sure he was out there hoofing
Dude,
it.
we would drive to New York. Our first client, which is still our client today, in the year 2001, was a company called Index, which is still now called, I think it's Homestead now,
Mhm.
right outside of East Rutherford, New Jersey. We
Yep.
would drive there and change into our suits in the car. Like, we had no money for hotels, and that's how it was. He lived at home, I lived at home. When
Right.
9/11 happened, it was our only client, was in New York, of course.
Wow.
And I'm like, are you kidding me?
Wow.
So we just closed the office, went back to his mother's house, and watched the news like everybody else did, and didn't work for like 3 days. And this is like, we needed to work.
Right.
But I'll never forget our first check. I have it in my office. My first check we ever got was August 11, 2000, from a man by the name of William Vogel in Albuquerque, New Mexico, who sent me a check for $1,802.
Okay.
We made 22% of that. I'll never forget opening that mail and me and Bronco both coming into the middle of the room, and the hug, the jumping for joy that we made $300.
$360.
But it proved to me that we
Right.
could actually,
You did it.
an idea in my mind,
Yeah.
and someone sent me money. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
that was it. It was it. And
You were
that,
on your way.
on my way.
It's on, baby.
It's on. And, you know, that was in 2001, August 11th, 2000. We got our first check. And I actually wrote a letter to Mr. Vogel last
Uh-huh.
year.
What?
Yeah, dude. Of
Yeah.
course I did.
Right.
Like I mean, this guy's reimbursing his health plan, and I'm writing him a letter that $1,800 kept me going. Like,
Wow.
dude, I was
Yeah.
depressed. Like, you have to remember, I was depressed. We're not making money.
Sure.
I'm trying to get clients. I'm living at home. All my buddies are partying, going out with girls, having dates. I can't
Yeah.
afford to go on a date.
Yeah.
My mother was embarrassed of me. She's like, "You're a lawyer and you're serving hamburgers and fries to people." Like, no.
I
And
brought you up better. You're
and the
better than this.
yes. And the crazy part was, again, there's just these random people. I try to tell people, like, the most amazing moments in your life
Yeah.
are moments that at the time you don't even realize they're amazing. It's not
Mhm.
until years later where you reflect back and realize how big of an impact it had. So, November, Thanksgiving of 2001. Every year we celebrate Thanksgiving with my uncle and my family. And my uncle has a friend named Paul. Paul Smock. I love this guy. And Paul is not a go-getter. Paul is the guy who does as little work possible just to make it by. Like, the guy
Mhm.
lives in Maine now, like in a small little house in Maine, works part-time,
He works to
driving a
live.
truck.
He doesn't live to work.
Exactly. And he goes, "Why are you so depressed?" And I go, "Dude, I'm working 100 hours a week. I got no money. I'm living at home. Maybe I made a mistake." And he said a quote that it said, sorry, um,
You're
it said,
good.
"Work." It said, "Work like no man should for 5 years. Live like no man can for the rest of your life."
Yeah.
I wrote that down. He didn't even know where he heard the quote. Like, he just told me that quote, and I wrote it down. It's still in my office. I
Right.
look at it every day, and it just reinvigorated me.
Mm.
Years later, when we had our first ever Phia conference in 2000, I believe, in 7, at the Omni Park House Hotel, where 250 people from around the country are coming to the Omni Park House for my conference. I invited Paul. He didn't know why. And I put the quote on the screen.
Mm.
And I called him out in the audience of 300 people, and they gave him a standing ovation. And I go,
Mm.
how much that mattered to me.
Mm.
And he had no idea. I mean, this guy's like, "What are you talking about?" Like, I don't even
You
remember
saying-
telling you this freaking quote,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
but it changed. It resonated with me, and
Yeah. Yeah.
we are so lucky to live in this country, and I
Oh,
truly feel that way.
dude,
Um,
I'm with you there.
and and so now, fast forward all these years,
Not only in this
we
country, Adam, but to live in this country in this day and age at this time, like I talk about it all the time. Like, do you have any idea what fucking lottery we all won? Like,
dude,
nobody should be complaining. You could be, a hobo on the Bowery, living in a refrigerator box, and I know that you don't have it as great as the rest of the world. But you know what? Maybe you do. You have it.
right?
You have it better than most of the world.
Most 100%.
It's insane what we take for granted, and it just blows my mind. So what you just said absolutely resonates with me. It's like, come on, man, like you got nothing to complain about. And and
That's
and listen,
100%.
I really credit you because people who are entrepreneurs, they're a special breed. Folks that are not entrepreneurs, I think many of them just don't get it. And sometimes it's just stupidity. Like, not to credit you and say how wonderful or bright you are. Sometimes it's just like I didn't know any better. I wanted to
Like
I
100%.
I had this in my head. I wanted to do it, and I went out there and did it. But credit, one of my favorite quotes is "Man in the Arena," Theodore Roosevelt, because it resonates with me. Like, these are it's not the critic who counts. It's the guy that's in the arena with blood on his face, blah, 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 like that. If you're an entrepreneur, you got to love that quote because it's what it's all about. It's about daring greatly. It's about not, just saying, "Oh, I'm going to go work for the man. Elon Musk has talked time and time again about, how much easier the road would be if he had just gone and worked for somebody. And you could argue and
100%.
say, all right, he's the richest man in the world, or depending upon what day of the week it is. But the
Right.
guy works like a fucking animal.
Right.
Right? Not everybody wants to sign up for that. Most people don't. But look at
And
you, man.
I can tell you, it's funny. I still remember like coming home to my mother's house one night. I got home at 7:30, and my sister was home. She was living in Barcelona at the time, and she goes, "Why are you home so early?" It was 7:30.
Right.
Like, and she's like, "What are you doing?" Like, I'm like,
Right.
"I just need to sleep," you know. But one of the things that and that's why it's so important to me when I look at the younger generation, and there's so many kids that I look at and I see myself in them, and they don't have what they feel are role models. And one of the things I will tell a kid is, a role model doesn't have to be a positive role model.
Mm,
It could also be a role model of someone you don't want to be like.
mm,
I don't want to emulate this person. I
mm,
want to be the opposite. And, luckily today I have a good relationship with my father.
mm.
Um, and then again, that goes back to my mom. I mean, my dad and I did not talk for 7 years. When my twins were born 9 years ago, my dad and I were not talking for years at the time
Mm.
because the way he treated my sister and my life growing up, all the issues.
Sure.
And I'll never forget, he called me. I mean, this guy, he just wasn't meant to be a dad. Like, he got married to my mom way too young.
Mhm.
He's never had other kids after that. But my entire life, I told myself, I'm going to be the opposite of him.
Mm.
My dad wanted to be a lawyer,
Mhm.
never became one. I was like, that's another motive. I'm like, I'm going to do it to show him.
Right.
My dad would make fun of my shoes. I know I got the better shoes that he owns right now. I got custom suits.
Gargamels.
I mean it. Like, I mean it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I tell a lot of these young kids who don't have dads, who don't have a role model in their life, I go, find someone you don't want to be like.
Yeah.
Find and do the opposite of what they're doing. And that's your role model, is the
Yeah.
opposite of that.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden you see kids, yeah, I don't want to hit my wife, or I don't want to hit my kids, or
Mm.
I don't want to yell at them, or I want to be positive to them. And that's had a profound effect on me as well. But
Yeah.
just so you know, if fast forward in 2016, 17, I believe. So Mike Bronco and I are working together. We're not taking salaries, right? We're just dogging it, right? Doing our
Still in
thing.
2017?
Still working, right? We got a draw.
Right.
We would only use, like, we just kept living. I bought a house, but we just kept living very
Modest.
meager, like
Yeah.
modestly.
Yep.
And Mike goes, I think, Mike and I were awesome partners. We were best friends. We're still very good friends. But Mike's retired. Mike hasn't worked in 6 years. I don't know what
Mm.
he does. I don't know how I couldn't do it, like, not work at
Right.
all.
Right.
He fills up his time with other things. He's a great dad. He's got a daughter going to Harvard.
Mm.
Harvard,
Wow. That's
like,
awesome.
I cried about that. Like, I cry a lot, but
Yeah.
it's not
Yeah.
even my kid. But I'm like, that kid,
That's
dumb as a
amazing.
door.
Ri-
This kid is not a smart kid.
Right.
His wife's super smart. I'm only messing around. But he's got a daughter in Harvard, man. Like, he lived in his mother's house when he was 30 years old. He's got a daughter in Harvard.
That's huge.
And he goes, it was like Ben and Jerry's. We start Ben and Jerry's, but Mike didn't want Ben and Jerry's to become what it is today, where you could buy Ben and Jerry's in the fridge, right?
Right.
I think Mike was more of a regional player. So he was like, you know what? I don't want to do this anymore. And I'm like, fine, but what are we worth? I don't
Right.
know.
Right.
How much do I got to pay you for 50% of the company?
Right.
I don't know.
Right.
And then, so we got a private equity firm just to buy Mike out.
Right. Come in and do a proper evaluation.
And, I'll never forget that day, when that, I thought I was going to get like one of those big checks, like in Happy Gilmore, right? Where you get the
Right.
big check at every, and, it was a wire transfer. And the day prior to
Yeah.
the wire transfer, my dog's vet bill bounced.
What? Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I got multiple, like, you can imagine.
Yeah.
I just start shaking. And my stepdad worked for me
Right.
because I'm like, give the guy a job, right? I mean, so I give, and I go, I'm a millionaire. Like, I don't think people understand, like,
Right.
that day. So we did a staff meeting, and we told every employee, no one's losing their job. We have total control. We still do, of operations, etc. And we gave every employee, Pat, my producer might remember, I think it was $100 for every month you worked at the company, or $1,000. It was some large number. It didn't matter your title. Whatever number of months you worked at the company, we gave you a couple $100 for each month.
That's awesome.
We had some office kids who were 18 getting $3,000.
Woo-hoo!
But,
Right. Oh, hold on.
and there you go.
Yeah, baby.
But the first thing I did, and I know it's so old school, was I had a mortgage on my house, and I'm like, even though my interest rate was like a 2.75, okay? I'm like,
Right.
I'm paying off the mortgage. Like my mom did.
Right.
Like, busted ass. Like, I walked into a branch, I swear to God, a local branch, and I go, yeah, I came here to pay off my $850,000 mortgage. And they go, you can't just do that here. I'm like, yeah, I can. And the whole bank stopped. Like, the whole bank, everyone who came around me.
Really?
And I wrote a check and paid my mortgage off.
Oh, that's awesome.
That day.
Yeah.
And then I went to my mom. And that's the one thing that sucks about this whole thing, is that, people are like, oh, you were so good to your mom. Dude, all I did for my mom was paid her back.
Yeah.
For what she did for me.
Yeah.
And she was, she had MS. She's living in the same house in Quincy.
Mm-hmm.
She can't really get out of the bed. The stairs are hard. And I knew that she needed to be in a 1-floor place.
Right.
And so I knew she had to move. And I knew she wouldn't move if I told her. That was the plan.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to find a place that I could find. And it was really hard at that time. So my best friend, Al, going back to when we were little kids, he was a realtor. And I told him the building that I wish I could buy my mother a condo in. Downtown Situate, where I live now, just south of Boston, on the ocean. She's got the marina in front of her. I'm like, I want a place for my mom in there. So even if she can't walk, she could sit on a couch and see the ocean.
Wow.
And see the sunrise.
Yeah, yeah.
And my best friend wrote a letter, swear to God, dude, to every person living there, and goes, I have a client who's willing to pay $1 million cash tomorrow to anyone that's willing to sell their unit. The second best unit in the whole entire building, guy responds and goes, I'll take it. Next day, I give the guy $1 million. Didn't tell my mother. 2 weeks later, I close. I have the keys. I bring my mom and my stepdad to the place, and I go, congratulations. Here's your place.
Yours. Right.
It's yours. And, my lawyers were like, well, who's the benefit? I'm like, I go, I want nothing to do with it. They go, what do you mean? I'm like, it's hers. Well, what if your stepdad and your mom get divorced, and what if your mom dies and your stepdad marries some young 20-year-old? I'm like, good for him.
Right.
He deserves it too. So, and that's probably the most proud thing I have is that.
That's amazing. Like,
and
one of the regrets I
it.
have. So my mom had me when she was 42. She passed in 93, malignant melanoma, and she was old school. Thank you. So, her mentality was, if I go to the doctor, they're going to find something wrong with me. So she never went. Yeah. And ultimately she was bleeding from a place that she hadn't bled from in many, many years. And by the time she went in and they went in and checked it out, she had vaginal melanoma, which was advanced, and then it spread, and she fought the good fight for us for years and went through radiation and all of that nonsense. And ultimately, she lost her battle to the disease. But one of the regrets that I have is that I didn't have an opportunity to repay her for all that she did for me. And so that you were able to do that, dude, that is fucking amazing. Like that. I mean, that had to be incredibly gratifying for you.
So, I know I'm cocky. I know that I'm confident and all those things, and that's how I've always been. But that, still to this day, that's my most proud achievement of my life, is that woman can have that happiness.
Yeah. Well, so you got to ask her. You got to ask her for me. Say, listen, I was on this little podcast. They have 4 listeners, but the host asked me a very interesting question. He wanted to know if you're still disappointed in me.
Dude, I've heard.
Yeah.
So funny story. So my mom had to sell the house in Quincy, and the house was paid off. Like I mean, it's crazy that they worked so many jobs to pay the house off. It was
Right.
$180,000 mortgage. It took them 25 years to pay it off.
Wow.
Okay.
Yeah.
And we go to the closing, and all the proceeds from the closing put it in her bank. I don't want it. Like, so she's got $1 million condo, and now she's got the proceeds from the house that they worked so hard to get.
Yeah.
Put them in the bank. And my mother looked at me. Swear to God, sir, the only time in my life I could tell you that my mother literally has said, "I'm proud of you," was that day.
Wow.
She goes, "Shit, man, I feel so bad because people are gonna make fun of me for like all the tears." But you're
Right.
asking me questions, and you're
No.
making me. I'm going back in my life, which is sometimes
No, I
so
love
hard.
I love that you're sharing. Listen, I'm going to go out on a limb and just say that you are interesting because you're vulnerable, and you're telling us, you're bringing us into your life, and what an incredible life it's been, man. It's fucking amazing.
And
So
she says to me that day, she goes, "All my life," she goes, "every day." And she said this, I'll never forget. Every day, I spent so much effort trying to make sure there was enough food on the table that I could pay them. Like every day, it's all she thought about. Now
yeah,
I try to get that people understand. Like all she thought about was how am I going to get the next meal on the table? How am I going to pay the next bill? And she goes, and now I'm a millionaire.
yep, yeah,
And she
yeah.
thanked me. And
No,
that's it.
dude,
And
that's and for
my mother
someone,
still to this day has never lied. Okay. I can literally tell you I've caught her
right,
in obvious lies. No, no,
right,
nope.
yep. Now you
Like I have
sound like my mother-in-law.
Cleveland.
Yeah.
I had a Cleveland Browns signed Cleveland Browns Bernie Kosar jersey.
Oh boy, Bernie
It was like,
Kosar.
oh, dude, he's my
Right.
hero. Okay. Like, and back then, when you were in my teens, Poland was communist. So any old clothes you had, people would package it, mail it to Poland. Like
Right.
that's what you did
Yep.
to your relatives. Well, I'm 18 and I'm looking for my Bernie Kosar jersey. Okay. Signed jersey.
Right.
Mom was like, "Oh, well, you must have lost it." I'm like, "Lost it? I lost my autographed Bernie."
My prized possession?
4 years later, I'm in Poland visiting my cousins on a fucking farm in a town called Popiówka. You know what the address was, man? Popiówka, number 5. That's
Number
the
5.
address.
That's beautiful.
I go to my cousin's farm, and I see my cousin on a tractor. So proud. He's waving. He's wearing my Bernie Kosar jersey.
Take that shit off, motherfucker.
So obviously I'm like, are you shitting me?
Right.
I call my mom. I call her from Poland. And the phone,
Yeah.
guys, we're talking about like 1999, 98.
Right.
You know what the phone was in Poland?
Yeah.
One button.
Right.
You connect it to an operator
Yep.
who then connects you.
And
That's
it was
the
an
phone.
expensive call. You talked fast.
I go, "Ma, why is Maverick wearing my Cleveland Browns jersey signed by Bernie Kosar?" "Oh, he must have got it on his own." I'm like, "You're telling me now that this guy
Right.
just happened to be in a flea market in Warsaw
Right.
and picked up a Bernie Kosar jersey?"
Right.
Still to this day, man, she has not acknowledged that she sent that damn jersey.
That is
I
hilarious.
tried.
That
I know.
is-
It's wild.
that is a great story. Well, God bless her, and it's great that you still have her with you. So talk to me a little bit about, you mentioned the SBC or the SBD, right? The summary plan document.
You got it.
What is an employer who's listening, a CFO, a CHRO, what do they need to understand about that and the importance of that document and reviewing it? And if they aren't reviewing it, are they doing so at their own peril?
I'm going to tell you right now, it's amazing to me after being in this industry so many years is how everybody, the CFO, whether it's HR, right? Everyone just assumes there's nothing you could do about your healthcare expense. Like this is your health insurance. Every year it's going to go up. Every year it's going to cost more. Every year you have to increase copays, increase deductibles for all the family members, right? It's like it's the second biggest expense that most companies have after payroll.
Yep.
Yet it's the least audited, least innovative part. Like think about this. If my guy Pat here, my producer, wants a raise, he's got to do a self-assessment, a review, peer reviews. His boss reviews him. He's got training, all these things to maybe get $5,000 raise. We'll spend 30, 40, 50 hours on Pat to show why he deserves $5,000 more.
Right.
How much time does Pat spend with HR or our organization? Well, not ours, but others. On his health insurance benefit, 1 hour a year during enrollment period.
Yep.
So Pat could go out and have a surgery, knock on wood, Pat, for $100,000 at a low quality facility, when he could have went to a high quality facility and spent $20,000. That's an $80,000 difference that company is paying with their own money.
Right.
There's stuff you could do. Our whole motto at a company is empowering plans. What does the word empowering mean? It means giving people rights and power they didn't know they had. That's all we're trying to do.
Yeah.
Is that everyone assumes, well, I have a broker for that reason. Your broker's lazy.
or has misaligned interests.
Misaligned interests, but I'm going to put lazy first.
Okay.
And I'm going to say this is why. I work with a lot of great innovative brokers. But here's the fact, sir. Nobody gets fired for choosing Blue Cross.
Yep.
Never. People that get worried are the ones that, what is this reference-based pricing? What is this direct contract? How do I incentivize? How do I get Pat to want to care about the cost of care? So I'm going to use an example. This mug. I can go on Amazon right now and get every review, how it's made, the cost, the prices, how fast I can get it. I can get star ratings. Oh, this is a quality cup. It's got a great handle. Oh, this thing chipped in Tuesday. You can find everything and your mother can find out everything about a mug.
Right.
Look up the doctor that's going to do your knee replacement surgery and tell me what you can find out about that.
Right.
Can you find out what the price is? No. Can you find out the quality? No. Do you have any idea if that doctor or that surgeon is using the most recent equipment or most recent technologies? No. Nothing. All you know is your copay and your deductible. So if you wonder why our healthcare system is so messed up,
right,
it's because it's the only part of our entire business, everything that you do in every day of your life, where people are not consumers of care. They're patients of care. And we have changed that dynamic here so much to the point where our health insurance costs go down every year. If you're an employee at this company for 5 years, Pat, you know how much you pay for health insurance, Pat? Zero. Free.
Yeah.
Free healthcare. No copay for generics. No deductible. It's free. He gets his own direct primary care doctor. So what I try to tell HR people is, yes, it's going to be more work for you.
Right. Right.
CFOs, I would bet I could save 10% on every single employer health expense and increase their quality metrics in the first year of working together. Just by looking at their plan design. Where can they incentivize employees to care about the cost of care? Are you aware of the fact that an MRI at a freestanding MRI facility with the same machine is $500? That MRI at the hospital setting where the doctor says go upstairs is $3,000. Same machine.
If not,
if you have
it could be a tenth of the price, right? Be a tenth of the cost.
But no one knows. So
Mhm.
there are so many things that you could do, that we have started, that we've implemented over the years, that we tell people, just do what we did. Follow our own path. I'm not just talking it, I'm walking it.
Right.
And I'm very proud of the fact that here at this company, my friend, we believe in altruism. We believe in charity. We work with the Boys and Girls Club of Metro South, which is the area that we're in, where there's a high percentage of poverty, high percentage of kids whose parents are drug addicts, whose parents, one parent, no parents, foster care,
Right.
kids who we give gifts to,
Yep.
and those gifts are taken away by the parent and sold for drugs. That's real.
Yeah.
And I'm proud of the fact that we're trying to build a place where people can have families,
Right.
can have careers, can grow, and also have the best health insurance and best healthcare outcomes
Right.
of any company in this country.
And it's
And that's really
possible,
what I'm
right?
proud of.
It's totally
Yes,
possible. But the mind blower is these are meaningful bottom line dollars. Every dollar that you save that you're paying for healthcare drops straight to your bottom line. So
100%.
it doesn't matter, whether you're a high margin business or a low margin business. If you're a low margin business, we're printing money to your bottom line. That's
Yep.
the net of it is. And as you said, you're being very conservative saying 10%, but it really depends on your
Just making
starting
it up.
point, right?
Right.
But yeah, most organizations out there, if they want to move the needle, 10% is really the tip of the iceberg. That is,
That's the first year by doing little stuff,
right,
little things. And then eventually, yeah, as you get, I call it self-funding. There's self-funding 101, or
right,
like your GED,
right,
right? I would argue that most employers in this country that are self-funded
right,
are doing the GED high school equivalent of self-funding.
right,
There's a PhD level that you got to get to.
right,
But most people just think, I got a broker.
right.
Every single year, it just gets worse.
Yeah,
And there's no tip. There has to be a tipping point at some point where people say, enough's enough. And I
right,
can tell you that there are such innovative minds in this industry. There are such innovative tools utilizing AI technology. So many things that we could do now where we can actually
right,
tell you what your risks are going to be.
right,
The
right.
data tells the story.
Yeah,
And
no, it's so true. I was
and
at
it's
I
something
was
that's
at I
so
was at
important.
I was at a get together this weekend, and a couple that we're friendly with. The guy is the CFO of a technology firm, a SaaS firm in Manhattan. They have 1,600 employees. He's a CFO, and he's telling me a little bit about their health plan. And they have Cigna. They're in an ASO arrangement, and blah 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 and blah blah blah. And he's telling me about the rebates that he gets from pharma.
Oh
And
my
so
God.
I laughed, and I told him, I said, so I interviewed Renzo Lazzotti. He's the CEO of USRX Care, brilliant guy if you know Renzo. And you know what he calls rebates? He calls rebates fool's gold.
Of course.
Because that is just part of the shell game, right? It's so long story short, I hope to have an opportunity to help this guy, but I told him based on what he shared with me that we unequivocally 100% can help him with this because it's just you are kind of a product of your environment, and if you put your trust and your faith in a broker that, by the way, is a large private broker or a publicly traded broker, they're making money hand over fist and without breaking too much of a sweat. And it's the easy button for you as CFO. Just hit the easy button. And, look, I
Right.
feel like I'm in good hands and, they're taking care of this for us. But don't you owe it to yourself? And we don't have enough time
How about
today,
how
but
about how about owe it to your employees,
well, and
where money's coming out of their pocket to pay for these claims too,
and now you
right?
have a fiduciary obligation with the
100%.
passage of the CAA. And there's not enough time in our show to talk about that, but love to have you on again and talk about, the implications there for an
We don't.
employer.
Yeah, we can spend 2 hours not talking about my upbringing in Dorchester, right? Or I'm a Cleveland fan. I get it, but I
Right,
can tell you this: just take this point. Look at the price of LASIK eye surgery. LASIK is not a covered expense on your health plan.
right,
The price of LASIK has gone down.
right.
Why? Because it's consumerism. It's
Yeah,
the economy, stupid. It's literally you have better technology and you're seeing the prices drop, just like the price of flat screen TVs. Remember those first flat screens?
they were a lot of
10,000.
money.
Now they're $400, okay?
Right,
Now you find them on the side of the street. Bottom line is everything that's covered by healthcare, insurance, prices go up. Things that aren't covered, prices go down. Why?
Mm,
Consumerism. It's opening the eyes of employees and employers
yeah.
to not do that. It's not even that much work. In year one, it's give me an hour, give me 30 minutes to just ask you 3 basic questions. Who's your administrator? Let me see a copy of your plan. What are you doing to incentivize your employees to care about the cost and quality of care?
Hmm.
And the answer to that third one is always going to be nothing.
Yep.
We do nothing.
Yep.
A little thing like that is going to make a big difference. And quite frankly, I tell people all the time, in no other industry can a 26-year-old kid start a business in his mother's basement and compete against companies that are on the New York Stock Exchange that have thousands of employees, because there's so much waste. I'm not even going to talk fraud. I'm not
Hmm.
talking abuse.
Yeah.
Just pure wasted dollars
Yeah.
that could be recovered, that could be not paid, that could have that could be paid in a different way, that could really change the dynamic of health insurance for our employer and our employee community.
So if I'm a CFO that's listening, and I'm hearing you, and I like your stories, I like your background, something is resonating with me. How can they engage the Phia Group, and what's in it for them? What are some of the things that that might, if something pops up or happens, they should think back on this podcast and say, you know what, I remember listening, and I like that guy Adam. Let me reach out and see if they could help. Give us a few examples of what you do for folks.
So basically, we'll talk to everyone and anyone. We never, I mean, my mother always told me, don't judge someone by their shoes, right? Very simple. We will talk to anybody. The first thing to do is just reach out to us on our website. It's www.phiagroup.com. You can call in,
PHIA
PHIA group.com,
Yep.
right? And we will talk to you. Now, the first thing I would do is say, just tell me what your current plan is. Well, how is your plan designed? Are you fully insured? Are you self-funded? How many employees do you have? All these, basic questions, and then get an idea on their healthcare spend. The number one thing that tells me the most about what we could do for an employer would be to get a copy of 1 year's claims data.
Mm,
No PHI, just because the data is going to tell you where your risks and opportunities are. Hey, do you realize you have a bunch of people? Like, give an example. These are a subset of claims here where your people went to an emergency room where they could have just went to an urgent care setting and saved $300,000. What? Yeah, here you go. So what can we do? How about take 10 minutes from that training session and give 10-minute video or a speech to your entire population and tell them, FYI, these are scenarios where you should probably go to urgent care. And if you choose urgent care instead of the emergency room, your copay $0.
right. As
Easy.
opposed to 250 or $500, what it is today.
The employee's happy. The employer's going to be happy because you just cut expenses and actually have better quality outcomes. The data is going to tell us everything. It's going to tell us where your risks and opportunities are. We take those risks and opportunities, and then we design a plan of how to attack that into your plan design. So we build the incentives. We share that information. And then it's one little thing at a time. And I would say, in a 3-year span, you could go from being a regular, Joe Schmo health plan to being really an innovative plan where your employees have bought in and realize, holy crap, do you realize my employees can go to 40 different hospitals to deliver a child in Eastern Massachusetts? The copay and deductible is the same, right? Regardless, as long as it's in network.
Hmm.
How do people choose where they go? My mother works there. My cousin had her baby there. I was born there. Like,
Right.
who actually researches the hospital to deliver your child at? Think about that.
Right.
You research the friggin' TV to put on your wall, but I guarantee you know less about your kid's pediatrician than you do about the Samsung TV that's hanging in your living room. That's sad.
100%. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's just the way we've been brainwashed, my friend. And that's what we're trying to do. So what we did was we said, all right, what does the data tell us? Guess how much it costs to deliver the same ugly kid? at any of these hospitals, from 8,000 to 60,000. Same kid's coming out. Same kid.
Right.
So what do? We did our work and we researched and we identified the highest quality facilities at the lowest cost. Pat, when he gets married one day and he decides to have kids, Pat can choose any of those. Or we tell Pat, see these 3 hospitals? If you decide to go to one of them for your baby, you don't have to. Free diapers, free baby wipes for a year. We've had 78 kids born since we put that program in place. All 78 parents decided to use a facility to get free diapers, free wipes. We have saved $2.6 million just by doing that. One sentence in a plan doc.
Not rocket science, right? You just created a little.
The Boston Globe called it an innovation. I'm like, that's innovation? Okay.
Right.
I'll take it.
I'll take it. Sure. Yeah. No,
but it's crazy. That's a little tiny thing like that. It makes a big difference. You find a mistake on your bill.
Yeah.
If you find a mistake on your bill, or if you find something that we don't have to pay for, or we're able to get the money back,
right?
Whatever money that is, 20% in your pocket, cash.
Right. Amazing. And so,
guess how many plans do it? None.
People hear me say this ad nauseum, but in healthcare, it's counterintuitive. But the more money you pay doesn't equate to the better care you get. It just doesn't work that way in healthcare.
It's not like cars, man. It's not like cars.
No, so, and I'm using an arbitrary example, but you might go to Mass General to deliver that baby for $60,000, and I don't know if that's what it costs there. But you might be thinking, hey, well, that's the best, and if God forbid there's a complication, they're prepared.
Right?
No, it's not necessarily so.
Do you realize that you're paying? So the way it works in healthcare is when you pay a bill, it's not based on the surgeon that performed the surgery. It's based on where that surgeon performed it. So there are doctors who on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday are at hospital A, where that surgery is $100,000. But then on Thursday and Friday, because they like to play golf on the weekends in the Cape, they're at a hospital down in Cape Cod. Same surgery, half the price.
Right.
It's the same doctor.
Right.
Who knows that? Nobody knows that.
No.
And that's the kind of stuff that we're trying to get people to be empowered about.
Yeah, 100%. Listen, Adam, we could talk for days. Next time.
I hope you enjoyed this.
Well, I did. I don't know if anybody else is still listening, but if they are, thank you for joining us. And by the way, folks, if you'd like and subscribe to our channel, that would mean the world to us. If you enjoyed today's conversation, we have many more. I'm not going to claim that they're all going to be as good as Adam. Adam is he's like lightning in a bottle. So he is, a true wonder. And we really appreciate you taking the time, Adam. But honestly, folks, if you do like the content, please like and subscribe to our channel. It's just going to help us grow, attract better guests. Speaking of better guests, we have Garrison Bliss coming up, who's kind of the father of direct primary care, which is
I'm a huge fan.
Which I think is the next iteration of, think of it as healthcare, 4.0. Like it is certainly one of the best, not only cost containment strategies, but overall healthcare strategies that we have going for us. So that interview is coming up. In the meantime, to reach out to Adam or any of the fine folks, it's phiagroup.com, PhiaGroup.com. And you'd be well served to, I don't know if you get to speak to Adam, but certainly with a member of his staff, they will do you right. And I think, listen, you heard it straight from the horse's mouth, folks. So if you like what you heard, I'm pretty sure that this trickles from the top down. You're going to get the straight dope from the Phia Group. And thank you so much for what you do. We really appreciated you joining. And folks, until next time, peace and love always. Take care.
Thank you so much.
So that's it for today's episode of Broken Healthcare. Head on over to iTunes or wherever you listen and subscribe to the show and join us on the next episode.